hour and 20 minutes
Yeah, we running?
at our hands. Let me have it like this. See?
There we go. Things going?
Yep. Gotta focus. Awesome. All right.
Yeah, man. What are we on? Episode 2?
We're back, baby. Yeah. I think this is gonna be episode 2 if I'm gonna edit everything from the rest.
Yeah, if not unofficial episode 1, bootleg episode 1, whatever you want to call it.
Bootleg pirated episode.
Yeah, off the scans.
But yeah. Yeah, so last time we really just went over a whole bunch of things. Anime, philosophy, capitalism. Like,
I mean, whatever, bro.
we
Yeah.
went whatever direction we really wanted. So I don't really think we have any specific thing we want to talk about for today either. But
Fuck no, general.
yeah, general.
Keep it.
So
Who cares? Let's keep it going. What are you reading on right now?
right now, wait. No, I didn't read anything new. I've been rereading.
Yeah. What do you
I've
want?
been rereading Sunken Rock.
Yeah, dude. I've been trying to get. I keep opening it up and never actually picking it up. How is it?
The art style is otherworldly, and it's very self-aware of how over the top it is sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, it's very much just pure male fantasy. Like
It's just manly. It's just a manly manga.
It's just manly bodies just fucking destroying each other. Like, it's
yeah.
not,
So it's a fighting manga, right?
yes.
Like, what's the plot? Because I don't know anything about it.
So Sunken Rock follows the story of Ken, who is just a badass motherfucker who moves to Korea to do something with his life, and he ends up accidentally starting a gang, and they're slowly taking over Korea, and they're like, a country is like a gang in that they have these financial responsibilities, they have this and that they need to do, and you just see them start from just this ragtag team of just mafiosos just moving up and gaining more and more power, and like, you have power dynamics shifting within the group. You have the fucking Japanese Yakuza that wants in on that, and it just goes a lot into that. But
Yeah.
the most impressive part of the entire thing is the art style and how Boichi just communicates.
Oh, it's a Boichi manga?
Yeah, the same dude that did
Oh. He's doing Dr. Stone right now.
Dr. Stone. You have very like the angular
Like super
faces and
chiseled
stuff.
faces.
Yes, but this one is just on another.
He's also hyper detailed.
Yes, like this is one of the main reasons why I'm worried if they ever animate this, like it's probably not going to be good, because unless they put in a painstaking amount of
Like
animation for like the detail, there's no fucking way. Like
Because you send me panels, and it's just like little grabs of it, and it's just like always like crazy musculature. It's like really dark line art, but
Like,
it's hyper detailed.
how would you recreate this in animation? The rippling of the
muscles,
clothes,
yeah.
the
you can see the
muscle
striations
shifting.
on his back, his
Like,
lats. That's pretty crazy.
You know how in Baki, for example, muscles, the author just knows everything about the human body. He knows every muscle, every organ.
Plus, everybody in that manga or even in the anime is just like grotesquely
That's
muscled
what I'm
up.
saying. Like, this is, you take the human form and you turn it to its most grotesque limits. You
Yeah.
know, people can like break steel with their fingers. This one is believable in the sense that you just see this protagonist just go through insane amounts of training, insane amounts of just. That's also why it's called Sunken Rock, because Ken, he's a rock. He walks his path. He always trains. One of the mottos, one of the phrases that keeps coming up is, the only thing in this world we truly own is the body we shape every day.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's one of the most inspiring fucking things. Like, this is one of the things that got me into getting back into boxing and just working out, because just,
Dude,
it's
they
true.
hype you up. I swear to God. I remember when I was getting super into like shonen anime. Shonen as a regular genre is awesome just because it's so motivating. It's always just about like a hero starts from nothing, and you just find, especially if you find like a complete one, you can see the whole transformation arc of when these people start off as nothing, like disrespected, and then they like gradually build up their bodies, or they train, or if it's like an anime or manga with the power system, they train in that power system. It's always about hard work and dedication, and that hypes you up, bro. You watch that? You watch an anime episode of like Dragon Ball Z and Goku's just working out in like 50 G's, trying to bulk up for a fight, and you're like, how am I not gonna go to the gym right now? Like, you feel physically motivated. They're awesome for that.
I will say, on that line of thought, you just reminded me of the perfect anime manga in that regard, that it actually feels feasible that you can actually chase the character's journey along with him. Hajime no Ippo.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, you see him from his first... You see him getting bullied straight off.
What was Hajime no Ippo too, for people who've never read it or watched it?
Right, Hajime no Ippo is a boxing anime / manga. It's been running for a very long time. It has over 1,200 something chapters in manga, and it's still updating weekly. And it tells the story of Makunouchi Ippo, this Japanese young
fisherman.
Yeah, young man who's helping his mother with the fishing business, and how he just gets absolutely trashed on in school. You know, like, oh, you smell like fish, oh, you this and that. And how one day when he's getting bullied, he gets saved by ya boy Takamura Mamoru, one of the best characters in anime and manga, in my opinion.
I mean, he's just a badass.
He's just, outside of the ring, he's a piece of shit. But when he's in the ring, he's the most motivational thing ever.
I know, and I honestly think they set it up on purpose, because it's always like him loafing around. And I mean, obviously, like during the downtime between the boxing matches within the manga and the anime, it shows him like fucking around, getting kicked out, being a perv or whatever. And then like it just cuts to him cutting weight in the sauna. Oof. And it just cuts to him at the fight, and he's just leaving it all on the line. That's the best part about Ippo. And
it shows the realistic side of it, the weight management, the effort, the training. Like, again, you see him throw the first punch at this heavy boxing bag, and it barely did anything. And from that, you see him so many years later just growing among the ranks, growing and just becoming stronger and stronger. And it's the manga that got me into boxing.
Dude, yeah.
If it's anything that got me back into martial arts, it's that one specifically. Because you just go along with it and you're like, these are real techniques used by real people, maybe to some degree. Like,
obviously they're enhanced by like the lens of fiction, but they do take real stuff like the Dempsey roll, the 1-2 combo,
the gazelle punch.
And some of the stuff they take like the most bombastic moves or whatever that never really worked in real life, but they look great in fiction. But the cool thing about Ippo too is the pacing, because it's like, you know, the fights are so drawn out. Not in a bad way, but they just slow it down, because the pace between fights when they're resting or recuperating from the previous bout, it's like a time skip. And there's always like a little time skip after a fight that people really don't pick up on unless you pay attention. They always give like little hints like, oh, 2 or so months have passed, a few months have passed. This is just snapshots of the life in between. And then when they step into the ring, one fight will take tens upon tens of chapters. Like any Takamura fight, like against
Takamura
Hawk
versus Hawk, that was like 2-3 episodes, like an hour at least.
Oh yeah, dude, but it was so fucking great,
so worth it,
and the art gets so detailed, punch by punch, the motion that's conveyed, and like, you know, they always have the same fans in the background. That's how they kind of work around. Instead of having to redraw the boxing crowd at every match over and over and over again, they have pre-selected backgrounds that fill it in just to keep it moving. Because, dude, releasing something weekly for what, decades now? Like, Ippo's been going on since what, 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's unbelievable. It's a machine. And it's just the craziest boxing story. And I think you see it a lot of times with manga or animated sports. They make you want to pick up the subject. Like, one of the biggest anime out right now is Haikyuu. And Haikyuu's a volleyball anime. And people are getting into volleyball.
Kuroko no Basket.
Yeah, that's like basketball, but with super like Power Rangers. Everybody's got superpowers. But in Haikyuu to an extent too, because it's like high school athletes that can serve like pros and stuff like that. But their stories are so powerful that people pick up the subject that they're based on. Like my younger cousin, for example, him and all his friends got into Haikyuu. And so when the latest season came out, they would watch it when it would air, like as a group. So all the boys would get together, and if it came out like whatever, a Wednesday released, they would get together, watch it, and they started their own volleyball team in their high school, I'm pretty sure.
Yo.
And so like they all picked up like the position, the sports. My younger cousin learned how to be a libero, because because he's built like me. He's pretty short, so he's like, I'm not gonna be up at the net, but he's like, I'll receive the hell out of a ball, and that's all started with an anime. It's ridiculous. And like there's a lot of esoteric topics that get covered, obscure topics that you never think you would get into, and then an anime with their storytelling and how it makes you want to just absorb the culture, whatever it is you're watching. It's really cool.
Like, what was it? I'm trying to remember the Japanese word for it. Food Wars?
Oh, Shokugeki no Soma?
Shokugeki no Soma. It's basically just cooking and food porn. Food hentai.
Yeah, borderline porn.
That got many of my friends into cooking.
Oh yeah, especially earlier on. Because did you finish it?
No, I stopped like after the first few like season or something.
Yeah, it kind of fell into the trap that a lot of realistic manga or anime within like subgenres fall into. Is where like it starts off like grounded in reality. Obviously,
and
there's some bombast, but then like you can only take reality so far within the subject matter, and so all of a sudden you're introducing people with like powers almost. And you're like, okay, this is cool and it's theatrical, but it's not the same.
Once it starts to mess with the story and the world building is when I have an issue with it. Because there's good ways of expanding the world building and the possibilities that exist within a show.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just bad ways.
Yeah, dude, like an example from Shokugeki no Soma, which kind of sucked. It's not even really a spoiler, it's just going to be an excerpt, but like one person's cooking with a chainsaw. And like, come on. Like, I understand suspension of belief, all like the theatrics you get in anime and manga, and it just takes you out of it. You're like, okay, like now this is just like a battle of powers. It's no longer like a cooking show. And honestly, because the reason why it was so good and why it popped off to start with was like it's battles with cooking. Like they're not fighting each other physically like Dragon Ball Z or Naruto, any of that. They're just who makes the better like the subject matter of steak, make the best type of steak, and then there's like characters battling in that, and they have like legitimate recipes. So once it got later on by the end, those kind of played out. They kind of cut it.
Yeah,
it ended for a reason. Now they're kind of doing like extension volumes and little like snapshot series. Those are better.
I literally only watched it for the recipes.
Dude, yeah,
I watched it and I'm like, damn, how did they make this? And then I looked it up on the internet and they just have them. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm cooking
and
now.
Like each character had like their own cuisine. Like one character was just a ramen character. Dude, I got so into ramen because of it.
I got into like seafood.
Yeah.
I always love seafood, but just the way they show like the presentation, how to cook some of this shit is like, yes.
Yeah, like when they make like seafood soup, and I'm like, this is obviously drawn and animated. It's not real, but I was like, this makes me want to actually try to recreate this dish.
Anime food
It looks so good.
Anime food is like a whole thing onto its own. Like you can find countless.
There's like anime food
online,
porn accounts.
Exactly, it's like the Studio Ghibli foods make me want to jump onto the screen.
Yeah, dude, in a perfect world, right?
You know, like
because Ghibli just got like this weird, soft art style. And it's always like juxtaposed by like brutal action, especially like in the earlier ones. But like everything's like so soft and like movement and everything's so well animated. There's always something moving in a scene. It's never like a PowerPoint slideshow. Ghibli's production is always top notch.
That one scene from Howl's Moving Castle where she's cooking eggs onto that magical stove and just the animation of the eggs.
Of eggs, right?
Just eggs. I don't even eat that many eggs, but they animated in such a way that any time that I watch or remember that scene, I'm just like, damn! Like, I want that.
Think about how many like lo-fi like study playlists there are that are set to like an anime girl like eating ramen, like a side shop, or like for example, I mean, if we're gonna talk about ramen, Naruto. Where
Naruto ramen
looks so good. Looks so good. I'm like, I never wanted to eat a piece of like animation before, but it looks ridiculous. I wish it jumped down on page, or it jumped off the screen because it looks so good. And obviously, like it's always ambiance and setup. Like those late night episodes in Naruto, where it's just like the end of like the episode and Naruto just ends back up at the ramen shop and just getting his usual bowl.
With homies and
you're like, come on.
I'm like, yes, you know.
It feels like you're participating in it. It's ridiculous. Like a third party observer. That's why like great world building in a manga is the best. Like what's your favorite well constructed system or anything across any fiction?
In terms of world building?
Yeah, world building could be within manga, could be within books you read, movies.
Within books, I will go with Sanderson, Brandon Sanderson, because his world building fits within the rules that he has created for these worlds, while also expanding the possibilities.
Yeah.
You know, like, not to get too into spoilery,
Is
but
there any
most
one
of
book?
most of these are connected in some loose ways. You don't have to really care about them. Most of these work as like lone series. But if you dig far enough, you can see the way he has just expanded the world building and the way he's connecting these things,
Yeah.
and you're like, holy shit! And it's all that better for
Yeah,
it.
and I mean, to provide context to what you're talking about, Sanderson's got multiple different series. Some have like 3 books, 4 books, some have 1 book. And there's always like little hints scattered around that these all kind of take place in one grand tapestry of a story.
Like-
but you can take them as individual stories within themselves. Like if you look at, let's take one series out because Sanderson's got how many fucking series going on
Let's
now?
go with Mistborn.
Mistborn?
Let's go with
Okay.
Mistborn. The original trilogy. We don't have to go into the sequels.
Yeah, the sequels are a whole nother beast unto themselves.
But the original trilogy, it starts out in this ash barren world, very dystopian.
Scadrial, right?
Scadrial, yeah. You know, really burning red sun, ashes everywhere, raining. Everything's black. Everything's
All the
soot.
there's like no plants.
There's
It's all brown,
plants
shrubbery.
are brown to adapt to take in like every single bit of light they can. Yeah, science. Like even his attention to scientific detail from our
Yeah.
world amazes me.
Yeah, I mean, he is a fantasy author, but he does do his best to capture reality in certain scopes. Obviously, when you're writing a fantasy novel, you're free to set the rules of the universe, but he does pay attention to those little details, and he also adheres to his own limitations and rules he set to himself.
Like for example, his magic system in this one is a very weird one. Some people, not everyone can do it. Some people can ingest certain magical
Just metals.
metal powders, burn them within them, and that gives them powers, either enhanced durability, enhanced strength, pulling or pushing
Yep.
metal or steel objects. And that just allows for a whole range of different possibilities, whether it's combat, whether it's
Like reconnaissance,
reconnaissance, whether it's getting from really far distances, like
transportation, mobility.
like just running for 24
Yeah, right?
hours and then just passing out, because that's what this magic system does. Like for every push there is a pull, for every pull there is a push. This harmony exists in most of his works, where it's very much based on rules, even though it is fiction. And in this one, it starts out in this scenario, and then the more you learn about the mythology, the history of the world, the reason these powers exist in the first place, it doesn't feel like an explanation. It feels like a discovery. It feels like you're there with the people and you're discovering the history of everything that is going on. And the more secrets you discover, as my favorite character from this book says, there is always another secret. The more you find, the more the world building just sticks with you.
Oh yeah, answers beget more questions always, especially with Sanderson, because like the way I feel like any of his series is that they do, they drop you into a power system and they explain like the basis of it and stuff like that, and then they just drip you information as you go along and you progress through the story. But every drip you get one answer and you're like, all right, so if this makes sense here, then how does that apply here, here, and there? And then now you're left with like 3 more routes you want to answer. And he covers his threads well. And obviously, stuff he leaves open is on purpose for continuation purposes. But even within book 1 of Mistborn, when you're dropped into it, like the intro is just the random girl Vin, who becomes the protagonist, finds out because Kelsier, who's her mentor figure within the book and like a legendary figure throughout the rest of the series, is like, hey, listen, like, why don't you try this? Like, take this little piece of metal, and she takes it, and they realize she has this power, and it's cool where like different metals give you different stuff. Like if you take in tin, you have really keen vision and hearing. If you take
that's so fucking
right,
cool.
you take in pewter, you have strength, durability, and then I always forget the ones for push pull.
Iron and
Copper? No,
copper
Copper's
is,
for like some
soothing and stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's some very interesting applications with all of his magical powers. Like they're not just used for combat. Like in his first book, Elantris, which is his least developed one, but still like really solid in my opinion.
That was one of his first ever writings that he decided to later make on a book.
There their power system is just drawings and symmetry and thing, but there's so many possibilities within that alone, and that's just not developed. Then you move on to Mistborn, where there's just so many characters. Like you have these savants that can only burn one metal, and they have done it to the point that they're just masters at it. There's this one that burns tin. That burns tin, one of my favorite characters. Spook. Lester Borns. I love him so much. I want to learn how to speak like him.
Oh yeah,
Wazing is the Wazing does.
Oh yeah, they have like that. What's the name of the accent he has in the book?
What's his?
Let's look it up. We got time. I mean, yeah, because he comes from a different neighborhood. He was the carpenter's nephew or grandson. What was it?
Something like that.
And he had that. Even within the book, nobody understood him, and it was just some type of learning or some type of language pattern that Sanderson crafted up for him. But Sanderson, while he is a writer, is also like an architect. He just builds these giant worlds and the laws that govern them and how people explore them or exploit those laws and powers that they have to manipulate the environment around them. And it's so cool to see because he also mixes it in with like realistic thematic elements. Like in the first book with the Ska, and it was the Ska versus the ruling class, and the Ska were impoverished, like proletariats basically, that were just a working class, treated like subhuman, second-class citizens, used as slaves and executed at a whim by a noble, and how they relate in a power struggle with the ruling class and the elite, and how you see like abject poverty.
The sociological levels of it, and the way that he tackles them, how to create a rebellion, how you tackle like a dictatorship, how you do all that, like.
Yeah, because it's so cool because you follow like basically a heist crew. Like each person had like their own thing. It's like if you watch like the Italian Job, like any of those movies where they have a heist together, they have like the hacker, they have this guy, they have that guy, but transplanted into a fantasy scenario where it's like one person is like the super enhanced strong guy, the other guy can manipulate emotions.
What's it called?
The other guy can do it all.
I forget if I covered this last time we talked, but
sorry, bring it back up.
Have you read Isaac Asimov's The Foundation?
No, you brought up Asimov.
Yes. So, for those who don't know, Isaac Asimov was one of the greatest science fiction writers ever. He is the one that inspired many current science fiction authors, including Brandon Sanderson. He was one of his biggest inspirations, and it shows. Without getting too much into spoiler territory, it's like a intergalactic levels
like
of
space opera,
not space opera, but it is there's a foundation that is built in the very far edges of the galaxy in order to preserve its survivability for a longer time because the galactic empire is failing. So one man who predicted all that sent this foundation to this very far off place, and they basically start from scratch building scientific things, gathering information, and just surviving long enough. So like
starting a new civilization?
Yes.
Okay.
And it shows them and how they have to tackle so many sociological levels, like neighboring planets that want their resources, how they go against that. And I just realized the fucking parallels to this and Mistborn, because
what parallels? Explain it to me.
Because in the first Foundation book, one of the characters, in order to tackle this larger force from another planet, went to them and gifted them all these marvels of technology, all these little gimmicks, all these little whatever appliances, stoves, vacuums, or whatever, but like specific to them. So there's always something cooler about it, you know? Like very interesting kind of technology. And turn that into a kind of religion. Like this is sacred religion. Without these generators, our society collapses. And they created this religion with this technology on this enemy planet.
It made them dependent on them
and made it dependent on them.
Okay.
And I'm like, wait a second. In Mistborn, Kelsier literally starts a religion to tackle on the religion imposed by the Lord Ruler.
Yeah, who's the ruler, emperor.
Like a dictator of their world.
Yeah.
And it shows that aspect. And then, and then another character in the Foundation one realizes, okay, now we have to do it a different way. Now we have to do it with wares and resources. And guess what? Later parts are very much about wares and resources. like he took the best aspects of Asimov's writing, the sociological levels, the how things grow and evolve, and just put them in these fantastical situations, these bizarre worlds where really all these magical systems work, and it's fascinating.
It was awesome. I mean, Mistborn starts off in a 1,000-year regime where it's like things have been mottled in gray and brown, and people have been subjected to abject poverty and deprivation of any slavery, rape, you name it. It was just literally like an aristocracy that governed over everybody, and these noble houses ruled certain sectors of industry that the Lord Ruler, who was like the pinnacle of this type of regime, took over. And when you brought up that in Asimov's Foundation series, I haven't read it myself, but what you just said reminded me of a different book I read, and relating to sociological aspects in creating religion on different cultures and creating dependence on a type of product and stuff like that. There's this book called Dune. It's a whole series.
I gotta get those.
Dude, I bought the whole volume set.
Next project.
Yeah, I bought the whole set. I'm still on the second book right now, but in the first book, Dune, it talks about this house called the Bene Gesserit, which is like, I might be mispronouncing it, but it's an academy, I guess is the best way to put it, society of only women who are hyper specialized in reading emotions, social cues, anything. Like I can tell anything about you by the most minute motions you make, like by a twitch of your eye when I bring up something, or by how you're breathing when I'm like attacking you, or if I hit you like a zinger and stuff like that, or what your posture conveys. Like hyper social readers, they can basically read your mind by your physical cues.
Sounds like a mix of the mentalist and psychopath.
Yeah,
psychopaths.
Yeah, and there's like another opposite school called the mentats, which are only men, and they're hyper rational. So they're like human computers, and they can process all these different variables and create amazing mental math models and just scenarios. And so they're usually in charge of like war planning, stuff like that. But the Bene Gesserit, what they do is to ensure that they're well accepted on whatever planet they can possibly go on. They send a Reverend Mother, which is like the highest rank. It could be a Reverend Mother. If anybody's giving
like a missionary of sorts.
Yeah, it's a missionary. But they send them to this planet to create a religion. And so wherever this religion is, they include key phrases from the Bene Gesserit scriptures, so that if anyone associated with the Bene Gesserit lands on these planets and these people start reciting their religion to them, there's certain phrases carried through the religion that they pick up, and they realize that someone had been there before from the Bene Gesserit and laid down this foundation for them to exploit. And so they know.
That's super cool, though.
Oh, dude. And this guy, I think it started in the 70s, this book series. And another crazy theme they had, and this is all from the first book. It's like amazing. I'm barely into the second book. And so the first book, the first 100 pages, for anyone that's ever read Dune, is thick. Like, it's all these different terms, like any fantasy novel, all these different terms and ideologies and philosophies that don't make a lot of sense until you get to the latter part of the book. And you start understanding these terms and like the way these people speak and how like the whole thematic journey of the book goes. Dune was just an awesome series in general. For the first book, I fell in love. It almost reads like a religious origin story, because it starts with like a story about a prophet. It's not just one point in time. It kind of starts at the like a grand philosophizing of what's about to happen, and then you go through it. It's so weird because it gives you the ending, or it gives you like major plot points to start. Like someone's gonna fall. Someone's gonna die. This is what's gonna happen. This is who this person will be. And you're like, why would I read this book anymore? You just gave me off like 80%.
I like it when they do that, though.
Well, I know, I get what you're saying, but at first I was like, the scene, like it was like so detailed, where it wasn't just like a hint. It was like, this person will die. Like this person is going to die. You don't even know them yet, but you know they die at this junction in the story, and you're like, why would you spoil like this for me? The author's doing it, and instead. He takes you along this whole sweeping journey where you feel like you can refuse time and fate, and then it still ends up at this junction. You're like, oh my god, like they struggled so desperately against this fate, and meanwhile here it is happening anyways. And there was another. Sorry, this is a huge rant.
No. I'm just thinking of a few things that are relevant. But like,
oh yeah,
continue. Yeah.
And so the last rant I have on this is that they do tackle, because it's a book written pre-internet, pre-computers, like advanced computers, and I was like, okay, like this is really cool, but obviously I feel like a computer can handle a lot of these problems. You don't really need a mentat like a hyper autistic person to compute these things for you. You could instead just have an AI run it for you. And that seems like it'd be a plot hole within that kind of story. And they talk about how they set an intergalactic law because this one planet developed computers that mimicked humans, AI, and then they advanced too rapidly and they were actually competing with other people. And so they just led a war on that planet and destroyed all those computers.
World building, baby.
Oh, yeah. And I'm just like, what a smart way to think of how mankind tackles on computers. And so they installed this law saying that no computer can ever be made again to mimic the mind of a man and perform
And this
the duties
was
of a
like
person.
over 20, 30 years
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
right?
No, this book is from forever ago. And I'm like, this dude is like, obviously he didn't predict the internet, but if you look at the journey of computerization and the level of data processing that improved over and over and over again,
And the
even with their
general
small sample
anxieties
size.
of AI. Like,
Yeah.
people being like, what is AI even gonna, like, accomplish, you know?
And so I don't know if he actually predicted like, oh, we're gonna have artificial intelligence, but he did predict a possible route that computers might take if we let them evolve to a realistic end destination, which is computers that compete with men and mimic the faculties and capacities of men and even outperform them. And that was all within this old ass sci-fi book. And I'm like, all right, this is crazy. And now Dune's getting a movie. They got a movie in the 90s, but it flopped. It's a really hard book to do, but I hope they do a good job with this one. They got like Zendaya, Timothy Chalamet, all these big actors. I hope it does good.
Have you seen the trailer for The Wheel of Time?
I didn't even know The Wheel of Time was getting a series. It was in a movie.
Dude, it's getting a series.
Yeah? Like what, on
and
Amazon?
It doesn't look bad. I was worried at first.
Yeah, I mean, any of those series.
But it looks pretty good. If you want to watch right now, we can, but like, yeah. Like,
I don't even know, like, I know it's by who? Robert E. Jordan?
yeah.
Okay. I never read them. I just know Sanderson after Robert E. Jordan
I have
passed
all
away.
of them here, yeah.
Yeah? Because Robert E. Jordan died what? It was like a 6-book series? And he died at like book 3?
No, it's like a 14-book series.
Oh my,
and he
so I
died
was fucking
at
off.
book 11 or something.
Man.
And Brandon Sanderson finished that, and that's
Yeah,
kind
as
of
per
how
his
he
notes,
took off.
right?
Yeah, and that's kind of how he took off in popularity, and like, yeah. Like,
Okay, so I was wrong. What was it, 6 books? 14 books, really?
it is big. Like, it
Oh,
takes
man.
up the entire shelf of my brother's library thingy. He
Yeah.
doesn't have any other books. He only has that.
The Wheel of Time series? That's
Like,
awesome.
if I had him here, it would take me both of these.
Really?
Both of these.
And they thick? Like they're big books?
They're pretty thick. They're each,
Like what, a few, like 600 page
like,
books?
it depends. Some are very small, like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then some are, like, misborn.
Okay, so like 500 pages
You
or
know,
so.
500, 600 pages.
Yeah. Okay.
Nowhere near the level of the latest Stormlight archive. So
Oh yeah.
he has another series.
Sanderson, yeah.
Sanderson has another series called the Stormlight Archive, and the first book, Way of Kings, is my personal Bible. I have read it so many times that I needed to get a second copy because my first one got utterly destroyed. Like, the first 200 pages are just straight up missing. And the second book is also starting to fall apart now. But that one, the third book that came out, when it first came out,
Oathbringer?
Oathbringer, I thought it would be like the last. I thought it would be like a trilogy and it would be like the final conclusion, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the entirety of Oathbringer, I believe, is bigger than the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy in terms of, like, book volume.
Really?
I believe it's either Oathbringer or
Or Rhythm of War, the fourth book?
But
I mean,
either of
Rhythm
them.
of War was ridiculous.
Yeah, but let me look it up real quick.
I mean, when Rhythm of War came out, my family and I, one of my family members tested positive with COVID. This was like at the peak of the pandemic. And so all of us were quarantined. But I had Rhythm of War shipped to my house when it released because I pre-ordered it at Barnes & Noble. And so for the 2 weeks we spent in there, I honestly think I was just locked in my room binging through this book, just reading page after page after page. And I think I annihilated it in like 3-4 days. But it was like almost like a religious experience going through that type of length of book. Because Rhythm War is what, like 1,100 pages?
Here we go.
What we got
The
here?
entire Lord of the Rings trilogy is roughly 576,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
Oathbringer was 462,000, and Rhythm of War, where is it? Rhythm of
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I didn't realize Lord of the Rings was so short.
Dude,
Or, I mean, I guess Stormlight novels are just that long.
Okay, yeah, no. So it's like a little bit under the actual length of Lord of the Rings, but still,
for one book
to
to
be
almost
bigger
be-
than a trilogy like that massive.
Especially, like, arguably the greatest fantasy series of all time.
Yeah, man. Can you just imagine the biblical levels of hype if
If Tolkien, like, fleshed out a story, you're saying?
no, if for example Mistborn gets a proper adaptation of that pedigree.
Yeah, man, that's a big if, Dom.
That's a big if.
That's what sucks.
That's a big if.
I want to
but
believe.
If it did, I want to believe because I would be so fulfilled, man. I would audition for it. I would audition for it as like a random ska that just gets like murdered in the square.
Oh yeah, victim number 45.
Victim number 500, whatever. I don't care.
First
Just
name,
have
last
me
name.
in it. Just have me in it. I would be so fucking happy.
That would be awesome. I mean, you know what I didn't realize is how like ethnically diverse. I mean, obviously when you read them, like certain characters are described with a certain complexion, but you don't realize how ethnically diverse Sanderson like has his main characters. Like within Stormlight. So in the first book, Way of Kings, I didn't realize that the is it the Alethi or Alethni?
The Alethi.
Alethi, thank you. I didn't realize that the Alethi were like really tan skinned. Aren't they like Asiatic?
Yeah, like you have so many different.
Yeah, but the Alethi, everything about them screams like Western Anglo-Saxon. Like they're described as like the Roman warriors of a people.
Very much.
They valued war.
The value of
They had
war,
a-
they're very much about strategy. They're about
Discipline.
the scrolls of war, discipline.
Yeah. And so like you always envision them like Romans, like Davids and stuff like that, just crafted figures and shaped facial features. And then once I saw like cover art, and I was like, oh wow, these people are actually more Asiatic, where they have like tanner skins, really dark hair.
Here we go. Yeah, this is Justin Roshar.
Yeah, so Roshar is the planet in which all of the Stormlight Archives novel take place.
And there's so many different ethnicities, nationalities, races, and they are described. Like some are inspired, of course, by real ethnicities of our world, but some are also specifically created to fit that one.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like, and sometimes, like, some ethnicities have, like, traits from both. That's why, like, the Alethi, I feel like he does take it from, like, Western civilization, those types of people, that philosophy and society, and then implants it. But then they don't look like that at all, which is pretty cool.
I don't know, like, I'm trying to think. Because I think I remember I was reading somewhere about people making comparisons to what ethnicities are what.
Oh, like, what they're saying, like, Alethi or, like, Japanese, for example, or something
No,
like
not
that?
just Alethi. Like, for example, here, like the Pure Lakers. The Pure
Well, yeah,
Lakers
anyone.
are very much like either those Asian cultures that are very much like,
Like-
water-based, fishermen-based.
Yeah, that's what I took. It seemed like Indonesian.
Like Indonesia-based, and then you have, the Unalaki in the mountains, big beards, big red hair, kind of reminds me of Vikings and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Oh,
Like
yeah, Vikings or, like,
Northerners.
Irishmen.
Yeah. Like, there really is just so many.
Well, yeah, I mean, he creates his own universe. It is, like, absolutely... And each novel fleshes out even more. I mean, there are people that spend hours upon hours on videos and forums explaining, like, within each new book that comes out, what this means to the universe and the power scheme they set and how it fits in with this principle and how it mixes with this dynamic. And, like, obviously, like, I read the same book they did, but people take that so deep where they get so nerdy into the power system. I love it because it breaks it down for an idiot like me who doesn't pick up on half the stuff. And they just basically piece together this giant mosaic of that, like Sanderson's piecing through each different book across each different universe and how it fits into the grand scheme of his Cosmere, which is the Cosmere's like basically the way of saying like the Avengers universe, Marvel universe, but for his book series.
Yeah, also just, I love the way that he has these set up. Explaining the magical systems and with symbols and how they...
Oh, yeah, like,
like
everything has
this,
its
for
own-
example, from Stormlight, like how, which lashings are being used, like power systems.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't wait to do a series on these where we just dig deep into these books.
honestly, like just in terms of magic systems,
Yeah,
there's
'cause-
so much, but
I
there's
mean,
just,
everything we're saying is like scraping the barest of surfaces for these books.
quite honestly, like the stories that I want to tell as a storyteller and a producer. Like, a lot of the stories that I'm telling are of humanity just being brought into these places where they have to survive.
Yeah.
And so, because there is an overarching story to mine as well, I haven't been releasing many, so none of you will really know about these until I actually release them as movies. But humanity collectively needed to escape. And that is why in many of my settings, there's just a great range of diversity. But it's also like you have these people that are diverse already by birth, right? What happens if you take them and you put them in a new surrounding? Like, how is that going to affect them?
Yeah. Oh,
You know?
say like if you take someone, if we're speaking like within human times, you take somebody from like 2021, you drop them off in like an environment in 1400 and see how they come out.
Yeah, like, basically, like, how are you going to assimilate in that kind of environment, you know?
Yeah, man. Honestly, like that's also a cool philosophical question because, like, I feel like a lot of people think, having grown up in the ways that we've grown up, that like, oh, even if I was born then, I would be this forward thinking, I would be this advanced compared to those people. So much more culture.
I'd be stoned to death.
Bro, I'd be
in
like
every era
oh my god, bro!
imaginable.
I'd be like, I mean, first of all, if we were born at any time that they were, if we were born with like the monkeys, I'd be like, I'd be eating berries and throwing shit just like they would. I'm not special. I just happen to be lucky that we're born in the foremost advance of our time as of right now. Like, we're born in the present, in the far flung future from then. Like, we've got it so good.
Man,
Like, bro, if I was born in the 1400s, I probably would have died at like 2 years old.
even just the fact that we exist during a time where these stories
Works of fiction? Oh,
are
bro, we're so
available
lucky.
to us, this is what kept me alive, you know?
Yeah, when
Like,
did you pick up your first Sanderson book?
when I moved to the US,
Really? What was that?
Mistborn was the first book that I read in English in full.
When did you come to the U.S.?
So, we were...
Before the
Right.
battery died. When you first came to the U.S., what age were you?
I was 12. I moved in here in 2012.
From where? Austria, right?
Germany.
Germany. Okay.
I lived in Munich for 12 years, yeah. And there, my best friend, who's quarter Greek, quarter German, quarter American, quarter Austrian, I got him.
Nice mix.
Once, if I ever bring him onto this podcast,
What's his name?
we're gonna break shit. His name is Lucas.
Lucas? Okay.
He's just this really tall, blonde kid. Absolute piece of shit. I love him so much. And he's the one that introduced me to Sanderson.
Really? He's the one that got you in?
We went to Barnes and Noble. I went to get in another book from this one series. It's
Some nice ASMR.
this one, Skullduggery Pleasant, which is a magical skeleton detective that shoots fireballs and elemental magic and shit.
It's like a younger series?
It is. It's really funny. Like,
Yeah.
his motto is kicking evil in the face.
Oh, nice. Is
You
it
know?
like a graphic novel or is it a
No.
full-blown book?
It's just books. If I find one later, I'll show you. But yeah, it's like very fun. It has some dark moments as well. But it was the first book series that I read as a kid, and he was like, like, you reading this? Like, check this out, and just takes Mistborn Final Empire out of the
And it
shelf
just drops on your lap?
and just gives it to me. I'm like, okay. And I moved
And
to
it's
the
like a
US.
hefty tome.
It's I don't have it here actually, but it's like this size, yeah.
Let me
And
see a page count on it.
this is 700.
Yeah, so he
something.
drops like a 645 page book
Yeah.
on you.
And like small letters too. Like Skullduggery Pleasant was big letters, lots of spacing. I could read it like within a
Yeah,
day.
you fly through the book.
And I get this, I'm like, all right, I'll read it someday. And I moved to the US, and I was going through a bit of a rough time because, you know, European kid moving into this area of New Jersey where everyone is super snobby and prestigious and just like not there with the moment. I felt very much just lost, and I started reading this, and it took me into this adventure, this otherworldly story, and I'm just like, holy shit, I was glued to it. And I have read, I don't know how many times since then. I've devoured basically every book that I could of this man. The only ones that I haven't read of his works is The Rhythmatist. And only because, like, that's not even an excuse. Not because it's not connected to the rest of his universe. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
But, like, I've read everything this man has so far.
And he's got a crazy catalog. What's he got now? Like 28 books?
How
gotta have
more?
This guy Sanderson, we've been talking about the length of his books, but he pops out a book, at least one book a year.
Dude, he popped like
At least-
three this year.
At least like one of each series, one of his series, he pops out at least 2-3 books a year.
Dude, okay.
He's an animal.
Okay,
And
let's
he's
see.
popping out like tomes. These aren't like small books. He's doing these crazy. I mean, he talks about the level of staff that goes into each book, which is smart when you're trying to do like a long running, grand span fantasy series. I mean, he's got people dedicated to lore. He's got people dedicated to making sure that the power systems, everything he introduces, doesn't mess around with anything. Like people that are literally dedicated to the. These are like fantasy physicists that are like, hey man, if you do this, it interacts with it goes against the principle that you set up in another book that dictates that the universe runs this way, so this power wouldn't work. It would violate everything else. And then you getting checked by all these different people and having like this nice machine, because now he's got like entire publishing and like a 40-something person staff at least of people that proofread, that reread, that read specifically for characters, read specifically for continuity, and keep that machine going. So he's got it down to such a science now that he's able to just really focus on getting these books out for people.
Bro, he has over 30 books under his wings.
That's ridiculous.
Actually,
That's absurd.
probably around 40.
And he's also got graphic novels.
And he's not even that old. How old is this man?
Probably in his 40s, I would say. Let's see,
45. He's
45.
45 and he's written over 40 fucking books, man.
It's another James Patterson. Like, I don't even know. I read like maybe 1 or 2 James Patterson books, and those are like always like top shelf at Barnes and Noble, like in your face. Here's displayed like 40 books. But Sanderson to have 30 books at 45 is ridiculous. 30 published books. Who knows how many scripts and drafts and stuff he's drafted? Who knows? That's an unbelievable level of production.
Okay,
Which is so nice. It's like so spoiled to be a fan of his because there's so many, like Patrick Rothfuss with The Name of the Wind, The Wise Man's Fear, that series. The dude's got a 3-book series that people have been waiting on book 3 since what, like for 7 years now? 8 years?
like,
Or Game of Thrones fans.
That's
Like,
what I'm
imagine
trying
waiting
to
for
find.
George R.R. Martin to get another fucking book out.
I'm trying to find a meme that I saw that just had me dying. That is, legend says that these 3 writers, Brandon Sanderson, George R.R. Martin, and Patrick Rothfuss. Have you read Name of the Wind?
Oh, I've read both of them.
I have, yeah, both of them.
Name of the Wind is actually one of my favorite fantasy
Same.
series.
Look. Just, I'm gonna bring it up here. Look at the creases of this one. How many times I'm gonna break these someday. But yeah,
Those are crazy. Let me see the fonts.
we've been waiting for the 3rd book for well over
Oh,
a
man.
decade now, right?
Yeah,
And
I
you
read
know,
this one on my lap.
George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones, he's doing everything except writing that. And so there was this meme that said, these 3 shave every time they finish a novel. And you have George R.R. Martin with this. You have Patrick Rothfuss
Yeah.
with just a foot of beard.
I wish he grew up.
And you
Sick.
just have Sanderson always clean shaven like a baby because he just keeps pumping them out.
Dude, I'm telling you, Sanderson and Ben Shapiro should get a DNA test because they look pretty similar.
Oh my god, what?
That comb over, those glasses, they look alike.
Oh my god, imagine Shapiro is just some bastard by Sanderson.
Is Shapiro's Sanderson's son?
Oh my
Oh,
god.
actually, the research says,
Actually, research. Oh my god.
according to these statistics, dude's a human computer. I can't. Those types of interviews, you ever watch those? Like, it just starts off as a fight to prove who's better than the other. Like, I feel like when you, like, honestly, I get it because if you're the type of person in the position he is or a person arguing against him, like, it's an ideological battle. Like, you're debating, and you're not debating.
You can't like give in
Yeah,
at all.
yeah, there's
because
no
if
give.
you do, then it's very much like, oh, so you admit that this and this and this and this. So the dude is just constantly just fucking going at it. I just can't stand this character. I just cannot.
Well, yeah, 'cause it's like I just like it must be the worst thing ever to be locking heads with this guy. Because like, listen, agree or not with his opinions or whatever he says, he has so much research done, and he's got so much stats and studies and whatever statistic he wants to pull up is here, and he just pulls it, and then you have to compete with that. That must be so annoying for anybody. And I mean, the only thing that sucks is that obviously you can glean insights from a debate like that, but there's like no nobody's giving one way or the other. I like that when you're in an adversarial relationship, having a conversation, or like obviously like a pointed debate is a lot more prepared than a regular conversation. It just doesn't leave like a lot of room for people to change.
That's the thing.
If you change, then you admit you're wrong in that type of instance, rather than like if me and you have a conversation about two topics or about a topic and we have opposite opinions, we can still like see where the other person's coming from and like concede that. But when you get into those types of debates where it's like my opinions,
very much ideological, my opinions are what I'm holding on to.
And if I have to admit that my opinion is wrong, I'm rejecting a part of myself now.
Like, I love being proved wrong because every time that I am, I literally change as a person.
Yeah.
For example, I don't know if I said this last time either, but my best friend Lucas again. There's one time we're in London and I'm just on my phone and I just sent out a streaks to all my Snapchat friends, you know? And he just looks at me and says, "Why?" And I said, "I don't know. What do you mean why?" He's like, "Why? Like, why do you do streaks?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Like, you know, I like keeping in touch with people. I like making sure that, you know, they're there for me." I'm like, then reach out to them. He's like, "Yeah, but it's not the same, you know?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but this isn't reaching out either. You're just sending, like, fucking whatever, right?"
Like a picture of a toaster with like caption streak.
Like, and you know, like, at the time, I didn't want to admit it, but I was lonely as shit.
Yeah,
and like, and I'm just like, oh, you know, like, I want to try and have as many people reply to me as possible, just so I feel like something, you know?
Yeah.
And then this that started from a simple line developed into both of us just like breaking down my fucking psychological like barrier, and it ended with me an hour into this saying "fuck you, Lucas," going to my room crying for like an hour, and then I haven't done streaks since. It's been over 2 years and I feel so much better because of it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't think like streaks are a great evil or anything, but at the same time it's just like, listen, dude, if you want to reach out to me...
I was able to focus on that instead of just, you know, mindlessly just making sure that I keep a number up. Like, so many people are like, oh my god, why'd you kill our streaks? We were going strong. I'm like, because we haven't talked in over 3 months and you just keep sending me pictures of the floor, like...
Yeah, with streak... No, it's like, it's the most useless form of communication.
Like, it's one thing if someone makes, like, a really creative streak, you know, like, they do some artwork,
or they have like,
some,
when they're like, listen, they're like, if I'm gonna snap you a random picture every day for a streak, then I'm gonna make it something.
Make it something. But when it just
effort,
devolves into just black and just S,
yeah,
I'm like, that's the point that I had reached, like, with people sending me streaks, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm not feeling anything from this, and he helped me realize that. And again, it was a painful fucking process because I was proved wrong with something that I was very much stuck on. Yeah, but since then, like, I feel better about that. So, like,
I mean, it's important that you have someone that will tell you the truth about something, or at least what they think
real shit.
Just let them, like, hey man, like, did you think about that the way you communicate is unhealthy for you or not happy? Like, is it making you happy doing that? And when you really think about it, depending on some things, like, for example, like my pops and his friend, when they talk to each other, they're fucking friends. Like, they go on walks, they go to the mall or whatever together, hang out. Probably low-key lovers. I'm kidding. But, like, they're just homies. But when they talk to each other, it's like, what's up, fucker? Fuck you, bro. Your mother's ass. Your mother's ass. Two old wise guys, I swear to God. I'm like, and they come to the restaurant, I'm working, I'm on my break, my dad sits down with me, we're having a conversation. The friend will come in, and they're just like going it's like so much anger, but they're like laughing. And obviously, like, for them, that's fun. But being around it, I lost my appetite. I had to pick up my salad. I was like, all right, guys, like, I'm going to go fuck off to the corner. Like, what's going on here? And I was like, Pops, you ever think about, like, the way you guys communicate is a little, like, there's a lot of, like, it starts, like, the top is, like, frothy and it's, like, funny. But, like, underneath, you think there's, like, a large undercurrent of
you guys are just roasting each other's deepest insecurities most of the time.
Yeah, or just, like, just anger. I was like, you sure there's not any bitterness in this? And it's just all, like, plays? Like, I never really thought about that. I mean, for him that works. I don't want to fucking be around it though. I was like, I understand roasting. It'd be like me and my Albanian friends. It's ruthless. You get brutalized for everything.
Also, like, it's very much one thing when your friends are genuinely making fun of you versus roasting each other to, like, just build character, build some shit.
Well, obviously, there's a difference between, like, bullying and roasting. Like, for me, with these friends is like it's almost like nothing's off topic for us to make fun of. Like my parents are split, so like they'll be like, "Teeny, like Altin, you're the reason why your family got divorced." And I was like, "Yeah, bro," because you know when I was a kid and my family got me tennis lessons, I could never get the backhand down, and it split my parents up. And so like that's me getting flamed another friend for being fat when he was a kid, and he was always like the super duper chubby kid, and he was like always had the stomach out in pictures, and now he's like super fit. He like hates that he had to like grind, but it's given such a crazy set of discipline. Everybody gets roasted for something, so it's never like one person is getting like railed on. Typically, I'm actually the one that catches a lot of this shit because you know I know it's coming from a friend, and I know that they're just trying to get a rise out of me or just to mess around with me, and I'll do it right back to them. But I don't take it to heart. Some people they like to dish it out, and they can't really take it, and that's when you're like, all right, you've lost the right to make fun of people.
Very few actual limits to what makes me angry. Most of the time, like, people can just say most of the things at me, and I'm just like, you know, like...
I mean, yeah, it washes off. You have to think about how it's coming to you, what's the context, do the people really know you? It's like, alright, they're just saying this to you to get a rise out of you, or they actually want to make you angry. A lot of it's got to do with intent. Like, I can tell when it's me and my friends. If some random dude came up to me saying some of that stuff, it's a whole different conversation.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And obviously, the way I see it is that I can't laugh at other people and like make fun of them if I can't laugh at myself and make fun of myself.
Humor, and especially not self-deprecating, but self-aware humor of your own things is gonna get you so far, especially in like these kinds of situations when someone makes fun of you. If you're able to laugh at yourself first or laugh with yourself first, then many of these things will roll off of you. That was one of the lessons that like I learned very first thing from my theater mentor, because he very much had a similar
like experience growing up.
Yeah, especially like in school, you know, like the funny entertainer.
Yeah,
yeah, he literally got like class clown out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I have a recording somewhere here of like one of our first lessons back when my voice was super high pitched.
Oh, wow. Would you do like vocal lessons with him?
Yeah, when I first moved here, I had several speech
therapies,
impediments.
Oh, okay.
And I really wanted to work on.
Were you an ESL kid?
No. Okay, fun. I'm gonna tell you a funny little story.
Yeah, let me hear it.
This one's gonna go down for the books. So, I came to the US and I had taught myself English because my French school, the French are racist. They don't want to teach English.
Within like the academic institutions?
Yeah, we had English class once a week for a half hour, and it was blue, repeat after me, blue. And you know, me and Lucas, who knew a little bit of it, he knows full English, I didn't know at the time, but I knew a little bit, are just in the back of the class just laughing our asses off, like, what the fuck is this? So I taught myself, me and my brother, we taught ourselves English by watching shows, by reading and comparing.
A lot of people pick up from like television media.
Yeah, and so I moved to this country and I do the ESL test and I pass with like 96, 97%.
Okay. Is it because on paper you were really knowledgeable in English and you had problems with speaking
I was both. No, I was good at both.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing. I do it, I pass with a 96, 97, and the ESL teacher, this bitch, she's like, oh yeah, but your kid never interacted much with American culture, so maybe he should come to my class and learn about American culture.
So this teacher said that she had taken it upon herself to teach you American culture?
Yes. Now the thing is, I didn't know how much of American culture she wanted, but she really taught me all about the racism, because she was racist piece of shit. We had some Mexican kids in the class. We had this Russian student in our class, and she would just bully them. Like what? She would like say bad things about like the way they behave or their country. But
so like she would talk shit, like say like, Russians or whatever,
and they couldn't like really understand much of what she was saying. And they'd be like, you know.
Oh man, that sucks.
But I understood everything, and I'm just sitting there silent, being like, "What the fuck?" Like the Russian student, she told me the story of how basically in her school in Russia, like the teacher would like use physical punishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, corporal punishment.
Corporal punishment as a measure of discipline. And upon hearing that, the teacher says, "Watch out, otherwise I'll put you in the middle of the room and beat you with a noodle." You know, and I'm like. you're really digging up this kid's trauma for personal amusement. Like, what the fuck is wrong
Oh,
with
why? He was like, the kid was totally opening up and talking about it?
you? Yeah.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, I was disgusted. So she had one class policy not to put the
Pencil sharpener?
pencil sharpeners at the edge of the desk. I would fill it up every day, open it, crack it, and put it very much on the edge. And she would look at me, and I would just, boom, right off.
Yeah, just...
Every day, every time. Just, this was like my little piece of resistance, you know, my rebellion. Just, pew, pew, pew. Nothing too much, nothing too little, you know, just enough to piss her off. To the point that a few weeks into it, she was like, all right, that's enough, go to the fucking principal, right? And I'm like, all right, I'll go. And I'm going, and all the people around me are like, oh my god, you're going to the principal, you're gonna piss your pants, like she's so scary. And I go in, and I'm about to sit down. And she says, did you know why you're here? And I interrupt, and I'm like, why did you hire this person? She's like,
How old were you when you did this?
12.
Oh, man.
And she was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, do you realize how fucked up of a teacher she is? She's like, wait. This is the first time that anyone has responded like this to this. Like I just came from a French school in Germany where I'm done just yelling at the teachers for breakfast. Fuck those teachers, for the record. We were constantly antagonizing them there. And then I moved there, and this is the first time that they encounter someone like me that's going against their shitty fucking things.
Was it a problem, growing up, you just never had good teachers?
Yes, very much so. And I go there, and I'm telling her all of these things. I'm like, yo, she's actually problematic. She's doing all of these things. She's saying all of these things. You need to, do something about it. Mm-hmm. She's like, okay, let me see. And she got in sporadically, the other kids in with some translators. They gave their experiences, because even though they couldn't understand the words, they knew
the
she
energy
was slimy.
or whatever she was put in their way. Yeah.
So
you can tell when somebody's making fun of you in another language.
Yeah. So I got all that, and then she comes to her class one day, and she opens the door, and my teacher's eyes lighten up. She's like, oh, you're so good, you're here, yes, let's talk. And she looks at the teacher and just...
Oh, the finger wave?
Come out
to the hallway?
Goes outside the hallway. Music to my ears. The screaming, the apologizing.
Really?
It was so funny.
Oh, the principal laid into her?
Yes, wow. We were just inside, just laughing our asses off, and she's just screaming at her, and she's like,
Yeah.
Absolute piece of shit. Comes back, doesn't talk to us. A few days later, we all collectively take the ESL test again. We all test out and move away.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I don't know why anyone doesn't want to be in this class, Same here, at the end of the year, they announced that she's retiring. I can guarantee
Yeah, it's probably either,
I
retire.
can guarantee you that she didn't plan to retire.
Was she older?
Not that old. She was
probably 40s, 50s.
50s, around there.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them retire by the time 60 or something.
Yeah, and they collect a pension. Yeah, they're just chilling.
But she goes on stage with this fucking absolute bitter look on her face, just shaking the principal's hand, and all of the kids that knew what was going on just booing her off stage.
That's awesome.
And this is my story, ESL. I didn't go directly to English class. ESL means English as a second language.
Yeah.
And I went into the actual English class then, and I was just fine.
Yeah.
But this was my first experience with that aspect of American culture. Just holy shit, how did this person get away with it for so many years?
Yeah, especially within an institution that's meant to raise kids for the future.
Middle school.
Yeah.
Middle school, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, and they had to deal with this absolute decrepit omelet.
Yeah, man. I went through ESL when I was younger, because when I was born here as basically first generation. But so I grew up learning Albanian and English. I don't remember which one was my first language. It was kind of learned them both at the same time. Albanian, speaking with my family at home. English, obviously interacting with the world, and I was always a late night cartoon kid. So even though I was 3 years old, I couldn't fall asleep. So my grandma, because my grandparents lived with me, would put me on her chest when I was a baby, and I would fall asleep watching late night Cartoon Network. Aww. And that's and that's how I picked up English, even when I got older. And so they put me in ESL, I think, in 3rd grade, maybe 4th grade. I think I graduated by the time 4th grade came around. But it was for my S's, my Z's, my R's, because I just pronounced them differently because I picked them up. Albanian is like sa, za, ra, instead of ra. Like it's two different R's.
Ra.
Like Albanian's got like a soft R, and then English has like a harder R, and so that's what I was working on in class. And I never really had a problem, or at least I don't remember ever having a problem with any teachers, except one time in 8th grade. So where I lived, I grew up in Lincoln Park in New Jersey. Basically, my entire community transplanted from the village in Macedonia. Altogether, the whole region kind of transplanted over into Lincoln Park Way, New Jersey.
Yo.
Yeah, so Albanians were everywhere. Albanians were just like the Filipinos, Mexican kids. We were just like a whole ethnic group came over. And so there's a ton of Albanians where I grew up. And, whenever we see each other, Albanians love seeing other Albanians because we're such a small group of people. And when I was in my 8th grade English class, one of my cousins came in, just popped over to pick up a printout. And he was a younger kid, and I said in Albanian, like, yo, what's up, cuz? Like, what's going on? And my teacher looked at me, she's like, we speak English here.
Oh my fucking god.
And I was like, at the time I was just like, alright, like, why? And like, I'm not cursing. Like, you're like so insecure that you don't understand what I'm saying to you. I mean, looking back on it, I wish I said these things then, but I was an 8th grader. And I was just like, okay. And then I looked at him and I was like, he gave like a look over, like, get a load of this bitch. But that was the only time I ever had a problem where somebody was insecure. My aunt and uncle had another problem when it was my cousin's graduation from high school. So my aunt and uncle, they used to live in the U.S. Like post 9/11, around that time, they left back overseas, but they let them go with an expired visa. And instead of being able to renew in the U.S., it took like 10 years to get my family back over to the U.S. And they had built a life by then, but my cousins came back, and one of my cousins, she graduated from my high school, and I was like a year ahead of her, 2 years ahead of her. And when she graduated, my aunt and my uncle attended. They're super proud. It's their oldest kid. She's graduating, and they're speaking to each other in Albanian because they both speak really good English. But your native language is your native language.
With your people, I know.
Yeah, well, your native language is your native language. It will never be smoother communication than that. You know what I mean? No matter what, even if you're like 99%, you still drop a percent. But when you're a native tongue, that's what you grew up speaking. And so they're speaking to each other in Albanian, and like some like older lady looked at them like, speak English. And then my uncle's like, yeah, you want English? Fuck you!
Yes, the only appropriate response to racist pieces of shit.
Can you speak English?
Fuck you!
I mean, it's just like crazy because, I mean, I don't take that stuff to heart. I never felt like victimized. But at the same time, I'm like, dude, I was like, if you don't want someone to speak, if you're so insecure about somebody speaking another language to you, pick it up. Pick up the fucking language. I learned Spanish in high school. And my family owns a restaurant, and a lot of the workers there spoke Spanish. Still speak Spanish.
I want to learn Spanish.
Yeah. And so I went all the way up to Spanish 5, so I was taking collegiate Spanish when I was a senior in high school. And so I would learn the grammar and the vocabulary, and I would take it over to the restaurant where I would work ever since I was like 12 years old. And that's where I would practice my Spanish. And if I got something wrong, I'd be like, hey, Miguel, Edgar, like any of the guys, I'd be like, what did I get wrong? How would you say this instead of how I'm saying it? Because I'm learning academic language, academic Spanish, which is like cool. But at the same time, it's like you don't speak like how you read or write.
There's two ways of learning a language from far as I was able to understand. One was that approach.
Or immersion.
And those are way better at writing.
Yeah,
They're
I can still write some Spanish.
reading.
My grammar is still pretty damn good.
But
I still need some practice. I'm a little rusty in that regard.
I don't remember most of my German writing and stuff. I can speak like enough to get by, but
I'm sure if you flew back over to Germany, you spent like a couple months, it comes all back to you.
Yeah, not even much. It's like a week or two, and then I'm like slowly
it's like a muscle.
back into it. It's just getting the words back into it.
Yeah, and thinking German.
Yeah, but yeah, the second way is you take, let's say, the 1,000 most common or important words within this language. You just learn 10 words a day, what they mean, how you use them, the very basics. And then that way, when you actually go there, you can actually converse with the people in ways that are effective, in ways that you can actually like.
I mean, what use is it when you're like, how can I use an ATM when you're just trying? Like, or like even something more like less relevant because you actually will have to use an ATM if you go to another country. So that's how I picked up my Spanish, and so like my Spanish now is a little bit more street. But like I actually was able to shed most of like my American accent. And the only problem is now is like is like when you speak multiple languages. So I got English, Albanian, and Spanish in my head, and like sometimes, especially I'm working at the restaurant where I work with my family who's Albanian, I interact with customers in English and other coworkers in English, and also interact with other coworkers in Spanish, and occasionally a Spanish customer if I have the balls for it. And there's always sometimes though, like you ever have the wires cross, where like I'm speaking to my dad in Albanian, and then I went to go tell a waiter something in Spanish, and I deliver straight Albanian to the waiter, and they just look at me like, what the fuck are you saying to me? Like when you ever see deer in the headlights, they just look at me like, what are you doing? Like, what are you saying? I was like, oh, my bad, bro.
Whoops, wait.
Yeah. Or like you're trying to remember a word, how do you say this shit? Like, and you say it in another language. You ever have dreams in other languages? I'm sure. Probably like what? Was it Greek or German for you?
Mostly they're in English and Greek. Sometimes they can be in French. Also, dude, my dreams are just so fucking weird. Like yesterday, just briefly, my brother mentioned Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Just in passing. Mm-hmm. And that same night, I dreamed that Alex Jones was in the apartment, that he was scaring me, and I threw him out of the window and he fell down and died. I remember very vividly being like, well, shit, I just killed Alex Jones. And I looked up on YouTube, like, how to
hide a body?
No, what to do if you accidentally kill
Alex
someone,
Jones?
you know? And then I woke up and I still had that anxiety. I'm like, fuck, I killed Alex Jones.
Dude, I don't get, like, a lot of anxious dreams, but there was sometimes, especially, like, when I was in college, during, like, the semester, and, you know, I had a deadline coming up, or I had a final or something that I'd been studying for that I should have started studying for and I wasn't. And I would always get the same, like, anxiety dream where it was like, I'm in a class and it turns out I accidentally registered for a class that I never attended, and I find out halfway through the semester. I had this dream all the time where I was like, I was a finance major, and so I accidentally registered for, like, rocket engineering. And I didn't realize it. And then it's halfway through the semester, and I realize I'm failing this fucking class. And the teacher is always my 8th grade fucking English teacher.
She just traumatized me for some reason.
It shows up in my dreams. That's the only, like, it's so weird that I remember this. I've had a lot of great teachers who I still remember and cherish, but, like, she actually is an antagonist within my life. And I'm gonna conquer her. One night in my dream, I'm just gonna put a sword just right through her in my dream.
Lucid dream, just
Dude, it doesn't matter what subject, because never, like, one subject. I always remember it's always some weird topic that's never relevant to my major when I'm in a dream, and it's always her teaching that class for whatever reason. I'm getting chewed out. And I was like, damn, because she hated me when I was in 8th grade. I was a piece of shit. I was a troublemaker for sure, and I was like a class clown, but she hated me. She did not like me at all. And I guess that carried over my subconscious.
Oh my god.
But that's like, yeah, dreams are weird, man, because sometimes I want to be like, yeah, they mean something, and then I have like a random dream where like me and my friends are being extorted by mafiosos in order to like rob something. I'm like, okay. I was like, that means jack shit. That's literally just a random movie I watched.
Future plan.
Imagine those were your
They're
visions.
actually prophetic.
That would be disgusting.
I mean, dude, there's one time, actually, no, this happened a few times, but I remember there's one time very vividly.
Like what?
I woke up, I brushed my teeth, I showered, I got my backpack ready, I am ready to go to school, I look at my phone, it's 8 o'clock, I wake up, it's 8 o'clock.
Oh wow.
Like, I had slept through my alarm, which was at 7:30.
And you just, like, and you dreamt your wake-up sleep?
And I'm like, I am ready to go, I will be on time. And then I wake up and I'm like, I'm not gonna be on time.
Yeah, man.
like, how do you fucking do?
It's so weird. The brain is so weird, where it's like sometimes
wake up.
Yeah, and it's just like your brain's telling you gotta be up, and it's never like you don't like roll over and you're like, what? It's like you launch out of bed.
You're like, what just happened?
Yeah, and like, dude, I've had some dreams that are so vivid and scary that I wake up and I'm like, where am I? I'm like, I'm in bed. I'm like, okay, we're not in the back of a car doing like 95, flying through like a road pass or something. I'm like, okay, cool, we're good. And it's so weird because it's not even like I'm going to bed in like a stress state. It's just like my brain just checking me or something. Like, hey, bud, like, how you holding up under stress? Let's find out. And I'm like, okay, I guess. I don't have dreams every night, but, you know, sometimes, like, they just hit you and you get hit with, like, a crazy lucid dream. My only thing is that, like, my dreams will be really, really vivid. And honestly, I don't really think they mean something half the time. Obviously, like, I feel like with the semester stuff, with those anxiety dreams, I guess you call them, That's the only time I ever felt like that. But other than that, they're usually super creative. Like I remember I had a vivid dream or a lucid dream when I was a kid, and it was back when I was playing Halo 3. And so I just dreamt that I was playing like one of the last missions in the story, and I was Master Chief. It was fucking sick. It was like the last battle. I was going up, I was gearing up. It was so hype, and it was like one of the few times I remember a dream. This is going back like 8-10 years ago whenever Halo 3 came out. It was like when I was in middle school, probably like pre 2012, so probably like 2010.
Video games, especially FPS for first person shooters, can not induce, but they can make you lucid dream.
How so?
Because you are so in control of the world of your character, and you kind of not switch off your brain, but you are very much like that.
Like you're basically transferring all your focus from your body to
like I've gotten to the point where like I'm playing Borderlands.
That's a great game.
Borderlands 2 is still one of the best games ever. I'm just playing Borderlands for just hours, and then I dream and I'm Zero, just like sniping.
You played
long
Zero
distances. Right, just slashing through people, throwing kunais and shit.
Borderlands 1 was a great fucking game.
Borderlands 1 was great, but Borderlands 2 is just unparalleled in my opinion. It's just one of the greatest games. I don't know why this light is not working now.
For me, Borderlands 1, that's all good.
That's all good.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a fucking light. We'll fix that later. The reason why Borderlands 1 was so good was first of all because it was original. There was nothing. I've never played another video game like it where it looked like the art style was meant to be cartoonish, like you're playing within a comic. Everybody's like these, like the first boss you fight is Nine Toes, and it'll go like, okay, you're fighting Nine Toes, and like when they introduce him, it's like but he has 3 balls. Like so stupid. It's such a great game.
It has so much character.
Yeah, and Borderlands 1 was like a flatter color palette because it takes place within like a desert wasteland with all these like wastrel people. And then it goes to Borderlands 2, and that's where you have like all of a sudden the environment's changed, all these crazy colors, everything's like more like pop art.
It really is. Like I love the art style so much.
Yeah.
One of my friends years ago, he did Psycho mask and whole outfit for Halloween. If I find it somewhere, I'll pull it up.
Oh, like the Psycho character from Borderlands?
It was so good, and then he made the mistake of asking me to do the shading for him, and I just gave him like the most poorly like cartoon 6-pack and just things. Like I made him look so bad, but it looked so cool. Like he had the accent.
It looked like he was drawn.
Yeah. But yeah, that video game is just so cool. I want to make my own video game someday. Like not make, but like have the story and direct it and like.
Okay, so you would like to be like a creative director for video games?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have nowhere near the capacity or the skills to actually code or do anything computer related.
Oh, it's okay. I don't have any fucking capacity to code.
I don't have any capacity.
Dude, I got no chance if I ever wanted to make a video game. Dude, it's like, okay, I can start off with a premise, but some video games are so absurd, like especially now that they're coming out of the next generation, like the PS5 games, PS4 games. Like, my favorite video game right now, it's a little bit of recency bias, but I played it for over like 6 months on and off, because my problem if I play like an RPG, I get so immersed in whatever. I'll get locked into a book, I'll get locked into a show. It's just like, I want to inhale this medium, this piece of whatever that I'm ingesting. And so when I play a video game, it will happen. But like now that I work and I like to keep fit, I can't just do like an 8-hour banger session and then like, all right, let's go on with my life. It don't fly like that no more. And so there was a game called Ghost of Tsushima. Have you ever played it?
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I've seen so much of it. It looks so cool.
It's like they took the essence of Japan, of like feudal Japan, and created this alternate reality where the Mongols successfully invade into Japan on the island of Tsushima. And it just takes all these different culture, like all these different cultural aspects and like regional and climate aspects. Like Tsushima's are actually a pretty small island in real life, but in the video game, you get like a little bit of everything in Japan. Like one area is like Hokkaido, where it's like super wintry and like a winter landscape, huge blizzards, always like snowy. And some parts like Okinawa, where it's summer and spring, and some parts are more swampy. Kind of like copies like the whole regional climate of Japan, because Japan's fucking massive. I always think it's small, but it's like Japan's like 30 times bigger in landmass than New Jersey. It's actually like a pretty damn big country, and it spans like from Russia down. But the video game was so good and so immersive. I'm pretty sure it got declared as like an official ambassador to Tsushima, the island. Like the regional government declared it, dude. Because it's like
Yo.
I'm in a sword fight. Like it's all influenced by oh my god, what's his name? Legend of the Seven Samurai, the famous director. It's like, yeah, look it up. Look, it's gonna drive me crazy. Because it's actually like a game mode. You don't have to do Ghost of Tsushima. Just Legend of the Seven Samurai. Akira Kurosawa. There we
Yeah.
go. Kurosawa. So Kurosawa would he was like the original or like the most like iconic creator of those Japanese movies where it was like the Tale of the Samurai, like all these crazy art styles, and where it's got like the build up. You hear like the little drums all the way up, and they build these giant crazy stories. And it's just a different type of storytelling than how we tell typically in Western cultures. And the game's really influenced by Kurosawa, like the setup to every story, to the setup to the fights. It's like almost like you're fighting a thematic fight. It's never just like a fight to fight, and it's so beautiful. And there's even a Kurosawa mode, so you can play in like grainy black and white, and it's like it looks like it's going down on film as it's like refreshing. And like the only thing that's red is blood splatter. It's so sick.
Wait, that's kind of
It's so sick.
That's kind of really cool. Also, like that particular one reminds me of Sin City.
Yeah, the movie.
Like black and white, just a few pops of color. I appreciate that kind of art style very much. Sometimes.
Yeah, it is because it's like it's negative. It's a negative art style. You're reducing everything down to black and white, and then you can choose what has like as much visualization. Like let's give an example. Helper. Like Helper is a webcomic that's just black and white, and the only thing that's like colored is the powers.
The powers, and of course, here's what I really like about it. In Hell, everything is black and white, and depending on your standing in Hell hierarchy, you have different colors. The most powerful goes, because of the way light spectrum works, is purple. The lowest is red. Medium is like
Blue.
yellow, green, blue, etc. Right? But then you go to the world of the living, and there's just colors everywhere.
Yeah.
Like I love that manhwa so much. We're gonna do a whole episode on that alone, where we just review over certain things, because I have so much to say about that. Because I actually had a really deep self-realization about myself
After reading that.
through reading that
Yeah,
at a
man.
particular moment, and something that I went through recently. Like
Wow.
a realization that I had. Let me see. I can probably condense it within a few minutes.
No need to condense it, bro. Let's keep it going for something else. No
Okay,
worries.
yeah, okay, but like
I don't want you to tell
it's-
something and
it's-
then have
it's-
to constrain yourself by time.
yeah, no, because it is like a meaningful moment to me, and I
Yeah.
don't want to just spoil one of the best characters of fiction. His backstory is like that. We're gonna go into it when we talk about it, but
And I think that's why so many people get into fiction, not even anime or manga, just any fiction in general, because a lot of times, a lot of the stories that are told are, even though they're told in like this alien environment or the different type of rules and powers and stuff like that, it is at the core of it, it's like a human
they're
thematic
written
story.
by humans.
Yeah,
they're
for
written
humans.
by humans for humans. If
And-
there was nothing we could take away from them,
And that's why, like, a lot of times, especially because, like, the way I see in anime or manga is that it really, honestly, the big series, like shonen, that are so popular is because they're built on, like, a core belief. Or, like, the main character always has a core belief. And, like, a lot of times they'll speak to people. Like, One Piece, the biggest thing is friendship.
friendship, getting that One Piece, getting on that adventure, and just eating.
Just, like,
food.
embracing the spirit of, yeah, right? Embracing the spirit of adventure and just, like, valuing friendship. And for a lot of people, that series spoke to them. Even though that series is, well, first of all, ridiculously long. But then also on top of that, it's just you get so absorbed into the characters, but also what they stand for and like the themes of the story that they're telling you, and that's why like a lot of people get super involved within especially like a long running series like that. It sucks you in, and the next thing you know, you're locked up. And now I'm spending every week waiting for a continuation.
Like when I've heard this from a few people, including some YouTube film critics that I respect, that I disagree with, that when you go to see a story, you want to be taken away from your world, and I understand that.
Oh, like escapism.
But the idea of you know, like every story has to be told like taking you away from issues and just taking you onto this fantastic adventure. I'm like, motherfucker, these fantastic adventure that you're speaking of is filled with these same conflicts that we go through, but through a different lens. And you need to understand that. It's not that you're going to see a movie and you're escaping your life. You're just seeing something else that speaks of the human experience, most likely through that lens. So,
well, yeah, man, but also, you know, looking from their viewpoint, a lot of people probably aren't happy with their current situation, and so they come across like a really fantastical series. It's a good escape for them from, you know, maybe some people don't have
absolutely
stuff going on, and I get that, and that's why a lot of those people, especially when you get into like something like anime or manga, where it's just like you find a series that speaks to you, and it, you know, it really reflects who you are at the moment, or like it goes to your core. And that's why you see people really pick up a series and just completely fall in love with it for that reason.
Yeah, but like, again, to what I was saying and what you just said, like
I don't think it's healthy, to be honest with you, but
One Piece, right?
Yeah.
In a way, it is very much escapist. You follow this group of people into an adventure, and it's just absolutely
and
fun.
obviously the adventure's not real, but like,
but in the background, there's genocides, there's slavery, there's political corruption, there is brutality, there's like these things,
all like in like a nice cartoonish art
that still exists, and like these are subjects that are being addressed, and like just to say that these things are escapist fantasies is just wrong. You escape your lens of your world, yes, but you also very much like see this, and depending of course how you analyze it and how you take it in, that's up to you. I love to see stories and take these things in.
Yeah, man. I mean, sometimes they do teach a lesson, and it's just like, listen, dude, even though obviously this isn't a real life experience I had or whatever, going along through this journey crafted by an artist, you can reflect on yourself. It honestly, like a really deep, obviously not all anime are this deep. Some anime are just fun and shits and giggles, but some have like really profound insights. And that goes across like any work of fiction, not just anime. It could be in regular movies and stuff like that have you asking yourself a question. If we ever get the time to talk about it, I want to talk about this series called Homunculus.
Ooh,
have you ever read it?
I want to.
Oh, have you read it?
I will read it, and then we can talk about it.
Dude, I
know that it fucks you up.
It's not. Oh, dude, did George ever tell you? So like, I read it first semester sophomore year. That's when I was living with George, and George wasn't having a good time at things either. And it was winter, and like winters in New Brunswick aren't very pleasant. It's just dark and muggy, windy, just like black snow. It's not as fun. It's nothing good about winter. And Homunculus is like a really dark existential series that like it analyzes the human psyche through symbolism and just concepts that don't like, you know, like they're trying to visualize a person feeling depressed or a person feeling some form of dysphoria with themselves or something not happy with, and it's like looking at a core of a person's issues and what their deepest, darkest burden is that they carry within themselves. And it's a heavy series. It's a pretty short series, but it's a heavy series. And I remember reading that, and like, even though those people weren't real, having to go through their journey to recovery or to like self-acceptance and to who they want to be and the type of life that they want to live, put me in a dark fucking spot. And it's not that because, and not every manga or anything you have to read makes you happy. And I'm not asking to have something externally make me happy, but it was just heavy. And just looking at it, and on the way that it ends, you're just like, there really is no one way to be who you are. And you're just like, oh. I was fried out. And the worst part is that semester, when it was already dark all the time, our one light in our room broke. And we were such fucking bums. And we had like those LED strips that were around, like every dude has in college. And that was all we had. But like, I'm in a dark room with like some blue lighting rimming the top of my ceiling with no actual bright light. Basically for so long, I probably wasn't getting vitamin D either. I wasn't supplementing with it. So like, I was already like in a pretty darkened mood, I guess. And reading that book, I was like, oh man. I was in like, for 2 weeks, I was just like looking at a corner. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Man.
It shakes you, man. Like a good work, especially even like a dark work or a work that asks you a question that's uncomfortable, they will shake you. And sometimes it's cool to have that type of reflection when you're like, okay, why did I feel this way reading this? Maybe there's something within me I want to reevaluate.
Like, I love a good story that can entertain me, that can make me just have fun.
Mm-hmm.
But stories that just hit you, that really just carve themselves deeply into you and your experiences and really mean something to you. Like, these are the stories that I want to fill my bookshelves with. Like, I think I've told you my plan that I want at some point, like later on in my life, to just own a big boat, 2-3 masts, you know, a whole kitchen and a whole office that's just a library with all my favorite books and just go from island to island. Like, those are the books I want to take with me to the end of my life.
I get that.
You know?
I mean, hey man, there's some pieces of art that carry with you forever. Like, listen, I mean, I'm 23 now. I like series that I loved like 6 years ago. Some aged out, but some are timeless. There can be some series that I read when I was 15 that I'm gonna be like maybe 85 if we make it there, wherever, you know. And I look back and I'm like, that shit was still great. I have it tatted on me somewhere, maybe. Oh, dude, it's the beauty of a good story, man. But you know, I think on that note, I think we end this episode.
I think so too. I think we've had pretty good discussions here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Gotta save up some more for later episodes.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll catch you on the next episode.
Galaxy Express signing off.